wasn't the best way to do it, but it worked all the same. Like that rain chain, aptly placed, that cracked the patio foundation, but overjoyed the grapevine. Like the mulberry tree that weeps in the wind, lamenting her lost upper half taken by a lightning storm last summer. All the while I ruffle through her perfectly arm's length height new growth covered in concentrated clusters of purple fruit. I could not stop stuffing my face until my fingers, shirt, and favorite pair of shorts were unmendably stained. It's like the free mulch I later found was filled with thorns and weed seed. It bloodied the soles of my feet, yet now hides the richest soil my yard has ever seen. So irresistibly teeming with life that you couldn't help but sink your wriggling little fingers knuckle deep and try to eat it. I didn't believe it until I saw it firsthand either. When sheltered from the desert sun, the grubs and worms and fungus resurrect lost cities and restore ancient lifelines that we pumped out of this land in the 50s. It's like the leaky irrigation line that killed the strawberry bush, but the honeysuckle grew taller than the house. Like the bee colony weary from their search for a new home, who made do among the orange blossoms on an exposed branch overhanging the alley. They were huddled head to wings so tightly I couldn't force them to leave, not by broom, leaf blower, hose blast, or pleading. Yet to my amazement they broke rank in an instant to follow their queen, diving headfirst into a mason jar for only a drop of lemongrass oil on their way to a safer shelter with a beekeeper friend. It's like the tangled catclaw that shades our western wall from the unforgiving June sun. It mounds, then dies, rots, and hides the unkind bugs. It cuts my skin and takes my curses until I tear down enough to see the carefully protected doveling tucked in a nest on the windowsill. It's like when Chandler, the 85-year-old nursery worker with harsh, cracked skin and kind eyes, helped me repot the friendship cactus I bought for my closest kin when they were having a rough week. She offered me a single holy glove, by which I mean my palm and ring finger showed through, but also I make no corrections if you heard holy, as in consecrated. For as her time-tested soil mix and hand-brewed compost spilled out of the Italian clay pot, it felt as though I had found myself on sacred ground. With no advance notice, she thrust the freshly uprooted euphorbia into my hand, whose sharp, tiny spines reactively pierced my palm and ring finger. I yelped aloud and dropped the vulnerable plant to the ground where she lay with one of her arms separated from her body. I could not help but say, "I'm so sorry," to the injured cactus. I know all too well the feeling of inflicting undeserved pain when I'm feeling exposed. So to you, especially you, my symbol of friendship, some rich, some lost, and fewer refound, I'm sorry for how that ended. I know you didn't mean to harm, but it really did hurt. I'm sorry for the ways I hurt you too. I promise I never meant to. And bare-handed, without flinching, Chandler swooped up the cactus and jammed it into the fresh soil. She said, "Good thing this beauty has so many arms. 7 left for your friends and 1 for you," as she plopped the separated appendage into a Greek yogurt container and filled it in with holy ground. It's like how the fallen mesquite tree became my grandmother's votive candle holders after just barely missing my head and putting a hole in the pegboard above the woodshop window. I had just started learning how to use the table saw. They were crooked and bulky, yet still found a place among her most sacred relics: rosary beads, a stained handkerchief, and my late grandfather's toothpicks. It's like the prized peach tree planted too close to the road, struggling in the desert wind. "Bloom where you're planted," my mother used to say, from a hospital bed in Texas, so far from home. You see, this life is never fair. Blooming is so much harder for some depending on their wear. Some people need, nay, some people deserve more help. So by old lumber and rusted nail, by shade cloth and extra water, that tree gave us one small fruit last summer. And even though ants found my ripe half first, I shook it off, sunk my teeth, and let the warm juices run down my chin. And with taut face, through my terror and abandoned plans, I am grateful. No, it wasn't the best way to do it, not even close. But it worked. It worked all the same. You are finally here, my baby girl. All teeth, tenacity, and rug burns. You didn't come from the right womb, on time, or with the proper promises. Before we met you, we cared for other strangers' babies. I cried hard every time they were placed in a different home, and got my first taste of these small tortures who still cling to my stiff neck, calling me names. Every day I pray for the killing of these leeches. Lord, let these be the wounds that free us from not knowing when a judge could call to take you away. But 3 weeks and a day after you took your first breath, the phone rings with another baby girl that needs someone to pick her up from the hospital. And although 11 months later and the judge still hasn't said it, this one, yes, this one, you're ours. I wish I could tell you I knew right away, but I didn't, and you didn't know me either. In fact, you hadn't known anyone longer than a double shift. You cried hard and loud in the car as we left the hospital, and I felt the weight of it all. Halfway home, I stopped at a neighborhood park off of Campbell and Edison and held you close. You started to know me and eventually calmed. I used to imagine our firstborn as an heirloom crafted centuries ago, carefully passed down from one generation to the next, planned in advance and knowingly accepted. But it isn't so. Our mother's mother can't push our plows, or dig our ditches, or bury our childhood pets, or stack our bricks, or carry our firewood, or cope with our anxiety, or war against our grief, or bloody their knuckles instead while hacking, scratching, at one point even crawling through the dense jumping cholla to find the trail we lost in the lowlands near the border. And their mothers even less so. We must work so much harder than that, and wait longer too. From down the hall, I know you heard Mama too, as she so eloquently says, "This is bullshit," to most everything we thought we knew. And she's right. What is lineage anyway, if not a river from frozen headwaters, pressing forest floors, damming fallen trees and flooded meadows, skydiving over travertine, racing wild horses, carving canyons out of limestone, and with every new watershed we pass, growing wider, picking up coarser sediment, finding ourselves transporting seeds of plant species we've never even seen before to the lower basin desert with soil so dry and thirsty we never make it to the fallow delta near the Sea of Cortez. Bloom here, my child, my offspring, my olive shoot, my heritage. This must be the place.